viewers, thank you for joining us. Today we have a special guest once again, as I always say. He's a special guest because he is from USA, Michigan, and he has a very special testimony. And basically this is what I want him to share with us. And I know it's going to encourage someone out there. It's going to increase your faith, especially your faith in God. So, and without taking much time, help me to welcome my guest today, Matt Jones.
Yes.
How are you and how have you been?
I'm blessed. I'm doing great.
It's good to hear that you're blessed. Please tell our viewers what's your name and where you come from.
My name is Matt Jones, and I pastor a church in Coldwater, Michigan, Trees Church. I am married, have been married for 18 years to my beautiful wife, Jessica, and we have 4 children, 17, 14, 11, and 6. So 3 boys and 1 girl.
Tell us where you were born and how your childhood life was like.
So I was born in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I was raised in the church. Some of my earliest memories I have of being in the church, I can remember sitting with my parents when I was probably 3, 4 years old in church. I started schooling in that church's school. They had a school as well. So, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, I was in Christian school. And then 6th grade, my parents put me into the public school system because, my sister and I were both in the private school. And in America, private schools can be expensive, and the public schools are free. So my parents, it just got too much of a burden for us to be in the private schools, so we went into public schools, and for me that was about 6th grade.
So would I be right if I say your childhood was normal, just like any other child?
Yeah, definitely. I would even say better than many, because my parents, they were good parents. My parents were Christian. They went to church every week. My dad served on the deacon elder board at the church. My mom worked at the Christian school. And my dad also traveled around the nation and sang in a Southern gospel quartet. So a lot of my friends growing up, their parents divorced. They only had one parent. They grew up in a broken home. So I definitely had a good upbringing compared to many of my friends.
Now let's quickly jump to Matt and teenage life and drugs, because you have shared with me about drugs and substance abuse. Can we quickly jump into that?
Yeah. So when we started going to the public schools, as a young man, I was just very insecure, and I didn't know anybody. I had went to school with the kids at the Christian school for many years, so I knew many of them, went to church with them. But when I got put into the public schools, I didn't know anybody, so I wanted to have friends right away. So the easiest kids to get along with were the troublemakers. So I got in with the wrong kids right off the bat, and started just getting in trouble and, mischief and all that. And then when I got into middle school, I didn't have a lot of friends, because even the kids I went to elementary school with, when I went to middle school, they didn't follow me there. So I was also put into a group of kids I didn't know. So I began to loan this one young man lunch money. And because I wanted to have friends, I just, he didn't have lunch money, so I would start to loan him. But the whole deal was he would pay me back. And after a couple months, I went to him. I said, "Hey, where's my lunch money?" And he said, "I'm not paying you back." And so then we got in a fight. I took my lunch tray and I hit him over the head, and we started to roll around. And we got sent to the principal's office. and they told us, just better behave in here. This is the principal's office. They walked out, and we started fighting again, knocked all our pictures off her desk, and got suspended. So I was suspended for school for 2 weeks, and then this young man that I got in the fight with, my very first day being suspended, my phone rings, and he says, "Hey, you want to go fishing?" So
Same one.
same one. And so we became best friends. He's a really good guy. We're still friends to this day, but he came from a broken home. His dad had left at an early age. His mom was always gone. So I started to hang out with him, and he smoked marijuana. He got in trouble a lot, and so I just started doing all those things with him. And at an early age, probably, I don't know, 11, 12 years old, I began not coming home at night. I would stay over at his house, and I wouldn't even let my mom know that I was gone, so she'd worry. And then I got a job at 15 where I was working with a lot of college, university students, which they partied a lot. And because I was really tall, I was 6'4" when I was 15, right? And so even though I was 15, I looked older. And so these college kids would invite me to their parties, and so I would be going to parties with university students at 15, and then I would stay the night there too. And I know my mom, I drove her probably crazy, because I'd be gone for 2, 3, 4 days in a row at 15, and I would, drink and smoke marijuana and party with these older people. And before you know it, I'm doing everything. I'm doing, cocaine, I'm doing meth, I'm, speed, whatever they call it here. And so I got pretty hard into drugs, even in my teenage years. Which led me to drop out of high school because I was just partying so much. I was skipping school, and got into a lot of trouble with all that.
Really, really interesting story we got here. At what point did you meet Jesus Christ?
Well, I had met Jesus as a young child. So when I grew up in church, I got saved. I met Jesus, got saved.
As a young child?
Yep.
How old?
So I knew, young. I would even say probably 4 or 5 years old, I gave my life to Jesus. I mean, it was so young, I have a hard time remembering it was so long ago. And then I continually, gave my life to him as I was growing up, because I was involved in church, and we went to church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday. But during those years I was getting in trouble, I was running away from the Lord. I knew he was following me because I could feel it, but I was continuing to run. And I had a short period around 18 where I had realized I need to give my life back to the Lord. I realized the way I was living my life wasn't working. And so for a short period, I gave my life back to the Lord. I went to this youth conference. There were some people there from a Christian university down in Texas. And I thought, well, that's what I need to do. If I move away, I'll get away from all my bad friends, and I will, I'll do better. So I moved down to Texas to go to Bible school. Well, I learned very quickly, wherever you go, there you are. Because it doesn't just work to try to run away from your problems, because the real issue is in here. It's not external. Yeah. And for a short period, it seemed like I had gotten away from my trouble. But the issues in my heart that led me to using drugs, the insecurity, the trying to fit in, just all kinds of different things that happened through childhood that led me to using drugs, those things were still inside. And so while I was in Bible school, I had to work to support myself, and while I was working, I met the wrong crowd again and started slowly getting back into that lifestyle. Before you know it, I'm full-blown using drugs again, dropped out of Bible school, and met some musicians at the job that I worked at, which I'm a musician as well, and I got into a rock band, rock and roll band. we actually went on to this program called Star Search. In America, it was kind of like, America's Got Talent, but it was a long time ago. Many people don't remember, but we actually won the preliminary rounds, which the prize was a demo with Sony Records. And so, the band I was in, we demoed with Sony Records. We recorded a demo. I was on tour with them. And while I was on tour, I was introduced to heroin. And I had done pretty much every other drug up to that point, had not done heroin. And because I was deathly afraid of needles my whole life. So I think that's one reason I stayed away from heroin. But when I saw that people could actually snort it and not use a needle, I thought, well, I got to try that. And so I got into heroin, and it just destroyed all kinds of things. The band began to fall apart because everybody was so addicted to heroin. I got to a point where every morning I'd throw up blood, and then I would go get more. And then I'd throw up blood, and I'd go get more. And it was literally tearing my body apart.
Hey, Matt, it didn't concern you that you are throwing up blood?
When you are so addicted, the thing with like heroin and cocaine, they're not just, you don't just get addicted because it feels good. There actually is a chemical change in your brain. If you study this and research it, you see that it changes the chemistry in your brain, so you're not thinking straight. You're not thinking properly. No, and you're not even like your normal problem-solving skills and your normal thought process. It doesn't work the same, right? And so when you see that, like for example, when I would see myself throwing up blood, I would just very quickly put it off. Well, I'm snorting these drugs, so it's tearing up a little bit of my sinus cavities. No big deal. It'll heal. I'll go get more, And because once you got more, you forgot about it. You didn't feel it anymore. You didn't think about it until it happened again, And so things fell apart not very long after we started doing heroin every day. I got in a real bad car accident after a gig one night. God completely protected my life. I got sideswiped at about 50 miles an hour. People actually flew out of the vehicle that hit me onto the ground. I didn't get a scratch on me. And God just continued to protect me, even in my mess, And the crazy thing is, I knew that, but I was at a point there where I couldn't quit what I was doing. Yeah, I was so bound by that addiction. Even though I knew this is causing some problems, this is really not good. I couldn't change at that point.
At that point, in your mind, did you ever think that one time I'll go back to Jesus?
Yeah, we would sit around in a circle and pass a marijuana joint, and people would look and say, "Yeah, Matt, he's a Christian." And I'm like, oh man, thanks, and people would start talking bad about God, like, oh, God doesn't exist. And I would start getting in arguments with them while I'm high, standing up for God. Not that I was that great of an example of a Christian, but I even in my addiction, I wouldn't deny God at all. But I also wasn't doing what I knew needed to be done to follow him either. I think maybe I thought, I'm young, one of these days, I'll get right. Well, I grew up in the church. I knew God was real. I saw all kinds of things that God did in my life, my parents' life, my friends, so I knew God was real. I just hadn't had a life-changing experience that brought me to that place of being fully committed to him, giving everything. I gave him a part, but I had never given him everything. And it's almost like I had to learn the hard way. Like I almost felt like, well, I can believe in God, but yet do things the way I want to do them. I can this, that. But I did have this fear deep down inside that if I didn't change, I would go to hell. I just kept thinking about that, but I think that just pushed me to get high even more, so I wouldn't think about it.
In a nutshell, were you introduced to drug life, or it was self-found?
I would say both, because I'm the one that sought out the friendships knowing that they probably weren't the most healthy friendships, and they're the ones that introduced the drugs to me.
Okay, yeah. Now, tell us about that night when you went into that Christian meeting and you gave your life again to Jesus.
Well, it actually wasn't a meeting. What happened was, my band in Texas fell apart. Everything fell apart down there because of the heroin. And I called my dad and I said, "Hey, I wrecked my car. My band fell apart. It was kind of like a rock bottom." My dad rented a van, drove down to Dallas, Texas from Michigan. It's like a 26-hour drive. Packed up all my stuff, picked me up, drove me back to Michigan. I mean, just the love of parents, especially godly parents. Really, I don't think I'd be here without that, for sure. And I know my mom, prayed every night, I'm sure, for years, knowing that I was out there doing what I was doing. They never knew everything, but they knew enough to know that I was not in a good spot. So they were really, praying for me on a regular basis, and that the prayers of a mother are powerful. And I think that's what I constantly felt every day. I felt like something was chasing me down, and I had to keep running away from it. And it was those prayers chasing me down, But what happened was, so I moved back to Michigan, and again I thought, okay, now I'm away from the heroin. I don't know anybody in Michigan that does heroin, so I'll be good. But wherever you go, there you are. Because I got to Michigan, and lo and behold, I got a job, and guess what? I met somebody that did heroin. And so I get right back into it. And so I'm just as bad off. This is probably around 19 now. I'm 19, 20 years old. Now I'm starting to get into my 20s being a heroin addict. And it just started destroying everything again. So, there are many stories I could tell. I'll have to save them for a book. I almost got killed a couple times from gang activity, and in Chicago and all these things, but that's for another time. I'll just get to the end of it. So I was in my hometown, Kalamazoo, one night coming home from work late. I closed at a restaurant, and it was probably 1:30 in the morning. I stopped at a gas station to get gas. I had $6 in my pocket, and my plan was to go buy a dime, $10 bag of cocaine, crack. And I had a dealer that would, go ahead and give me $10 worth for $6, because he was my dealer. He knew I'd always come back. So I'm at the gas station. I'm filling my tank up, and I look over and I see a vehicle that had, 5 men in it. And they looked at me, I looked at them, and they knew that I was a drug addict, and I knew they were drug dealers. So it's just, you can kind of tell. And we gave a little head nod, and I was like, well, I'll just get drugs here instead of going all the way to my dealer's house. Because when you're an addict, it's like, I can have it now. That's better. So I said, hey, I've got $6. They said, that's fine. I gave him my $6. The guy put it in his pocket, and I turned around, got in the car, and we're about to go away. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's my last $6. You're not. So I ran over to the car and started punching their car. And it was a really nice car. It was like a lowrider, brand new paint job. And so they stopped really quick and got out there like, whoa, whoa, stop, And, I look back, I'm like, what in the world? Here I am, a crack addict trying to go after 5 gang members. And so the guy that took my money, I'm facing him, and he's like, chill out, I'll give you your money back, So he's digging in his pocket, and I'm watching him because I know he's the kind of guy that could probably have a weapon. So he's digging in his pocket, and I'm staring at his hand to make sure he's not going to pull out a gun or something. Well, while he's digging in his pocket, his friends come up from behind me. One had brass knuckles, and the other had a cement curb, and they bashed my head from behind, and I went straight down. And they all just started beating me up against this gas pump, and I was just surrounded. They were saying things like, kill him, kill him, kill him. And something came over me. I did like a Tasmanian devil spin, jumped out, and blood was flying everywhere. a lady started screaming. Somebody said they were going to call the cops, so of course they jumped in their car, took off. I had a bench warrant for my arrest because I was driving without a license, so I had to get out of there too. I ran up to the counter, and it was a kind of a gas station where they had at nighttime they locked the door, and there was just a glass window, and he pushed the drawer out, and blood started filling the drawer up. I mean, it was spraying. And I asked him for napkins so I could hold the blood in my face, and he gave me napkins, and I got my car and took off. Long story short, my jaw was broken 3 different pieces. I could move it in 3 separate directions. This part of my skull right here is all gone. That was moved over here. That piece of bone was over on this side of my face. They had to put 8 plates, 32 screws in my face to put it all back together. They had to take all the skin up off my face, hold it up with pins, go underneath, and put everything back together. So that was pretty major event in my life. I almost got killed, and I remember laying in bed recovering from the surgery, and then immediately having that feeling to go get drugs again. And I'm like, this is crazy. I just almost got killed, and now I'm wanting to go right back out and get more drugs. And I heard the voice of the Lord stronger than I'd ever heard it before. The most audible voice I had ever heard before. And the Lord said, Matt, if you go back out there, I'm not protecting you again, and you will die.
Still in the hospital bed?
I was home recovering. I was laying at home recovering. He told me I would die next time. He would not protect me anymore.
And you knew it was God?
I knew it was God, because I knew that was the only reason I survived before, was that he was protecting me. And that, that just blows me away, because it's like, in our sin, in our mess, in the worst case scenario, God's grace and his mercy still is protecting us. But there comes a point, right? There comes a point where our free will is now having to decide, and God is saying, hey, I've been protecting you. Look, I gave my life to the Lord as a young child, so God was with me. But it got to a point to where God was just saying, hey, you have a choice now. I'm letting you know, if you go back out there, that's on you. That's on you, because I'm telling you, I'm taking my hand of protection off. I'm warning you. I'm giving you a warning because I love you. But if you go out one more time, the hand of protection is coming off, And so I got right on the phone. My pastor, because see, I had been going to church during this whole time again, but yet I'd sit in the parking lot and cry all night in the parking lot of the church, because I wanted to quit, but I did not have the power in myself to do it. So my pastor had been trying to get me to go to Teen Challenge, which is a 1-year Christian discipleship program for people with drug problems. They're all over the world. There's centers all over the world. And I would always tell him, I can't go there. It's a year. Like, what am I? Like, that's too long. And then he would always say, well, what did you do with the last year of your life? I didn't have a good answer for that. But this time I knew, like, I don't care if it's a year, because if I'm going to die, like, I gotta get help. So I called him. We started calling Teen Challenges. Most of them wouldn't accept me because I just got out of surgery and I was on medicine. They don't let you bring pain meds into Teen Challenge. But I found one that would let me in, and it was in Lansing, Michigan, which is the state capital. Pastor Jeff Turner and Lansing Teen Challenge let me come in. I was there for a year. There I was able to really reconnect with Jesus in a powerful way. Chapel every morning, Bible classes every day, getting in the Word every day, letting the Holy Spirit fill you and renew your mind. And that's when God completely set me free. I can remember being there just 3-4 days, and I was having heroin withdrawals. And I had heroin withdrawals before, and they usually last about a month, 45 days, 30 to 45 days at least, where you can't even barely have anybody touch you, and it feels like somebody's hitting you with a hammer, because your whole body, it just destroys your whole body. And I started having these withdrawals, and I'm thinking, how am I going to stay here for another 30, 40 days with feeling like this? But all the students surrounding me laid hands on me and prayed, and immediately my heroin withdrawals went away, and they never came back. And that right there was as much of a miracle as seeing somebody's limb grow or their arm come back. Because that's just, medically speaking, those withdrawals last a long time. But the Holy Spirit took them away, and I stayed there, and God changed my life. So
That's powerful. I think our viewers, we take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have a very powerful testimony also of how he met his wife and also a miracle God has done to his wife.